When men fall in love, it's not the fireworks people imagine. It's not just a lightning strike in the chest, not only that rush of adrenaline you see in movies where everything slows down and suddenly the world feels like a song. For men, love often comes quieter, slower, and deeper than they expected. It isn't always loud, but when it roots itself, it anchors. A man in love doesn't always announce it. He doesn't always parade it in front of the world, but you'll see it if you know where to look. When men are in love, you'll see it in the way they shift their pace to match yours. They walk slower if you walk slower. They notice when you're tired even before you say a word. They listen not only to your voice, but to your silence, because silence has a language too. It tells him when you're hurting, when you're overwhelmed, when you need him to speak, and when you need him to simply sit beside you. Love turns his focus outward. It makes him attuned to you in a way he never knew he could be. And here's the truth: men don't always know how to handle the intensity of love when it comes. They can stand in front of storms, they can endure pressure, they can fight through battles most people will never see, but the vulnerability that comes with love, it terrifies them because it strips away the armor. It leaves them bare. It shows them that someone else now has the power to hurt them, and that someone is the very person they trust the most. That's why some men run from love at first. They feel it, but they push it away because it feels too heavy, too risky, too much. Yet, no matter how far they run, love has a way of following them until they realize that running doesn't ease the weight. It just prolongs it. You'll know a man is in love when you see consistency, not the grand gestures, not just the surprise dinners or the big words. It's in the repetition of care. It's in the good morning texts that never fade, the checking in after a long day, the "did you eat yet?" questions that seem small but carry meaning. Love for a man is not about making promises in the future. It's about showing up in the present. Over and over, again and again, when men love, they invest in your dreams as if they're their own. They want to know what makes your heart beat faster, what keeps you up at night, what visions you see for yourself. And a man in love doesn't just cheer you on from the sidelines. He strategizes with you. He encourages you. He reminds you of your strength when you forget it. Because for him, your growth doesn't threaten him. Your shine doesn't dim him. Instead, it completes him. A man in love doesn't compete with the woman he loves. He builds with her. But here's the catch. Men in love don't always articulate that as well as they feel it. Sometimes they're awkward. Sometimes their way of showing love is fixing the car when it breaks down, or making sure the doors are locked at night, or working extra hours quietly so the bills are paid. Their love is often hidden in responsibilities, in actions that don't get the same applause as romantic gestures, but mean just as much, if not more. A man in love may not write poetry, but he'll notice when your shoes are worn and buy you a new pair. He may not serenade you, but he'll learn to cook your favorite meal even if he's terrible in the kitchen. He may not always say, "I love you," as often as you'd like, but he'll say, "Text me when you get there," and that is love in another language. Love for him isn't about performance. It's about provision, protection, presence. And yet, men in love also wrestle with fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of disappointing you, the fear of failing at the very thing they want most, to love you well. They may not show that fear openly, but it sits with them. It pushes them to try harder, to become stronger, to keep moving even when they're exhausted. That fear, in its healthiest form, becomes fuel. It makes them committed. It keeps them accountable. Because the last thing a man in love wants is to lose the one thing he values most. You'll know a man is in love when he begins to reveal sides of himself that others don't see. The world may know him as tough, strong, unshaken, but with you he shows his doubts, his questions, his softer edges. He lets you in behind the curtain into the parts of him that aren't polished or perfect. That is love. For a man to let down the guard he spent years building and say, "This is me, all of me, and I trust you not to run." And men in love also become students. They study. Not books, not theories. They study you. They study the way your mood changes when you're tired. They study the tone of your texts and know when you're upset even without emojis. They study the things that make you laugh until your stomach hurts and the things that make you withdraw into yourself. And in that study, they adjust, they adapt. They try to love you in the way you receive love, not just in the way they know how to give it. That's growth. That's humility. That's love. And when life gets heavy, when circumstances aren't easy, when stress piles up, that's when you see a man's love most clearly. Because love isn't tested in sunshine, it's tested in storms. A man in love doesn't abandon when things get difficult. He doesn't run when the pressure builds. He doesn't look for escape when conflict arises. Instead, he plants his feet. He chooses to work through it, not walk away from it. Because for him, love isn't temporary. It's not conditional. It's not fragile. It's something worth fighting for. When men love, they sacrifice. Sometimes it's small sacrifices. Sometimes it's big ones. It could be giving up free time to help you chase your goals. It could be moving across cities because your career requires it. It could be putting aside his own comfort to make sure you feel secure. Sacrifice doesn't scare a man in love. It solidifies him. Because to him, the cost is never greater than the worth of the one he loves. You'll also notice that when a man is in love, his sense of pride changes. The kind of pride that once drove him to prove himself to the world now shifts into pride in you. He brags differently. He boasts differently. Not about himself, but about you. About the way you carry yourself, the way you think, the way you move through the world. He celebrates your wins like they're his own. And that pride doesn't come from possession, it comes from admiration. He doesn't love you because you belong to him. He loves you because he belongs with you. Men in love sometimes struggle with balance. They want to provide, to protect, to create stability. But sometimes in that pursuit, they forget the simplicity of just being present. They may overwork, overthink, overdo. And that's why patience is necessary. Because even in love, men are learning. They're learning that love isn't only about building futures, it's also about enjoying moments. It's not only about sacrifice, it's also about laughter. It's not only about protection, it's also about play. And a man who stays in love learns that balance over time. But here's the quiet truth. When men love, transforms them. It rewires how they see themselves and how they see the world. They begin to measure their life not only by their own achievements, but by the peace, the safety, the joy they create for the person they love. Love makes them softer without making them weaker. It makes them braver without making them reckless. It makes them gentler without stripping away their strength. Love brings out dimensions in a man he didn't even know existed until he found someone who drew them out. And if you ever wonder whether a man loves you, look at his actions when no one is watching. Look at the way he treats you when the lights are off, when the cameras are gone, when there is no applause to be gained. That's the truest measure of his heart. Because men can say a lot, but love isn't in the saying, it's in the showing. It's in the consistency of care, the daily choosing, the quiet devotion. When men are in love, they don't just fall, they commit. They don't just feel, they build. They don't just promise, they prove. And when that kind of love settles in, it doesn't go away easily. It stays. It endures. It weathers. Because a man in love doesn't see you as an option. He sees you as the answer. When men are in love, see it in the way they start carrying things you didn't even ask them to carry. Not just bags or boxes, but burdens. Emotional ones. The ones you thought you had to handle on your own. He'll step in quietly, not to take over, but to lighten the load. Sometimes he doesn't even say he's doing it, he just does. He'll notice when your shoulders are heavy, when your spirit is tired, when you're pretending to be okay. And without demanding credit, without announcing it, he'll pick up part of that weight and carry it with you. That's what love does to a man. It makes him want to shield you from storms, even if it means walking through them himself. A man in love will also change the way he sees time. Before, time was something he filled however he wanted. It was about his schedule, his grind, his pursuits. But when love hits, time becomes something sacred. It becomes something he wants to spend with you, something he wants to share. He stops measuring his days by what he achieved for himself and starts measuring them by what he built with you. An hour with you becomes more valuable than a whole day without you. And the things that once consumed him no longer hold the same power, because nothing feels as worthwhile as the moments you create together. There's also a vulnerability in the way men love that often gets overlooked. It shows in how they start planning for a future they can't fully control. He might talk about where you'll live, what kind of home you'll build, or even what kind of traditions you'll create.
Yeah.
He doesn't always say it with certainty because men know the world is unpredictable, but he says it with hope. And hope for a man is not small. It means he's letting himself dream with you in the center of that dream. That's not casual. That's commitment in its rawest form. When men love, they show you their flaws in ways they don't show anyone else. And it's not because they're proud of them. It's because they trust you with them. He'll let you see the impatience, the insecurities, the places where he still has work to do. And he'll let you see it not to push you away, but because love makes him believe that you won't run. That maybe, just maybe, you'll stand beside him while he grows through it. That's one of the most telling signs when a man no longer hides his imperfections, but instead works to become better because of the love he feels. And sometimes a man in love becomes quieter, not louder, because his love is not always about grand expressions. It's about absorbing, about listening, about noticing. He doesn't need to shout it because he's too busy living it. He doesn't need to declare it in every moment because his actions keep declaring it for him. Love for men often whispers louder than it shouts. You'll know a man is in love when he starts letting go of the ego that once drove him. Doesn't need to win every argument. He doesn't need to prove every point. He doesn't need to be right just to feel strong. Because love teaches him that being right is not as important as being connected. Winning is not as important as being together. Pride shifts from protecting his own ego to protecting the bond he shares with you. And that shift is no small thing. It's the kind of transformation that only love can create. Men in love also find themselves doing things they swore they'd never do. He might sit through a movie he doesn't care about just because it makes you happy. Might try foods he never thought he'd like just because you suggested it. Might find himself driving across town in the middle of the night because you casually mentioned a craving. Love stretches him. It softens his stubbornness. It makes him willing to bend in ways he never thought possible, not because he's losing himself, but because he's finding joy in giving. But make no mistake, men in love are not perfect. They get it wrong sometimes. They can miss the signs. They can say the wrong thing. They can withdraw when you need them close. But even in their mistakes, you'll see their love in how they come back, in how they try again, in how they apologize, not with empty words, but with changed actions. Love doesn't erase flaws. It makes a man willing to work on them. It makes him want to bridge the gaps, to grow where he's weak, to keep showing up even after he's failed. And if you really pay attention, you'll notice that a man in love often becomes softer with others too. His patience grows, his compassion deepens, his perspective widens. Love doesn't just change how he treats you, it changes how he treats the world. Because when he learns to love fully in one place, it spills into other places, becomes gentler with friends, kinder with strangers, more forgiving with himself. That's the ripple effect of love. It doesn't stay contained. It expands. Men in love become storytellers, not always in words, but in how they share pieces of you with the people around them. They'll mention your name in conversations. They'll light up when talking about something you did, that they'll carry your presence into rooms you're not even in. Because when a man loves, can't help but weave you into his world. You're not just part of his private life, you become part of his narrative. And that's powerful because it means he's not only proud to love you, he's proud to be connected to you. There's also a protective side to a man in love that runs deep. And it's not about control, it's not about dominance, it's about care. It's in the way he wants to shield you from unnecessary pain in the way he stands up for you, in the way he watches over you even when you don't notice. Protection for a man in love is not about limiting you. It's about creating space where you can feel safe enough to be fully yourself. That's the difference between control and care. One restricts, the other empowers. And a man in love knows the difference. A man in love also finds himself humbled, because love teaches him that no matter how strong he is, he can't do everything alone. He learns to lean, to share, to depend. He learns that strength is not just in holding everything together, but in admitting when he needs help, when he needs comfort, when he needs you. And that humility doesn't weaken him. It strengthens the bond. Because love is not about perfection, it's about connection. It's about the willingness to admit, I can't do this alone, but I don't have to because I have you. And love also brings out a kind of joy in men that can't be faked. It's in the way they laugh more freely, the way their stress eases when you're near, the way they carry themselves differently because they know they're loved and they love in return. Love doesn't just live in words or actions, it radiates. It shows in their energy, in their presence, in the way they walk into a room lighter because of who's standing beside them. When men are in love, they don't just love who you are in the moment, they love who you're becoming. They see your potential, they see your growth, and they choose to walk beside you through it. And in that process, they also grow. Love becomes a mutual expansion, a shared evolution. It's not about one person carrying the other. It's about two people carrying each other, lifting each other, building each other. That's what makes love for men so powerful. It doesn't just change how they feel, it changes who they are. And if you've ever wondered whether a man is in love, look not at what he says on the best days, but how he responds on the worst days. Look at whether he shows up when things are hard, whether he stays when things are messy, whether he leans in instead of checking out. Because real love isn't measured by how high he lifts you when it's easy, but how firmly he stands when it's not. When men love, they love with everything. Sometimes clumsily, sometimes imperfectly, but wholly. They don't hold back pieces of themselves. They give them, even if it scares them. And that giving, that risking, that choosing again and again is what makes their love not only real, but rare.